Good day, everybody. Here we are on the Bible in the year 2021, day 77. And we're looking at Deuteronomy 21 to 23. Deuteronomy is a lot to go through, and I'm really being challenged here. Try not to touch on every single thing, but this thing is so jam-packed full of revelation of who Yahweh is, and it gives us such great insight. It's just so rich. It's absolutely rich, Deuteronomy. So I'm doing my best not to load you down too much, but it is just part of the nature of this book. So let's start in on verse 5 of chapter 21. And we see here, bang, it's named straight out, the Levites are responsible for the justice system, for the judicial system. It says here, then the priests, the descendants of Levi, will step forward because the Lord your God selected them to minister for him and to bless in the Lord's name, and because every legal dispute in case of assault is decided by them. Plain, simple. There you go. Um, and that's all part of that government or governance system that we were looking at yesterday. Uh, this whole thing between verse 1 and 8, I just want to summarize this. And um, it, it's as we read through this that we're realizing the value that Yahweh places on protecting the innocents. It's absolutely important because you don't have a very good judicial system if the innocent end up being persecuted, if the innocent end up being found guilty, if it's according to some person's whim, instead of according to justice, and it is Yahweh Himself who has defined justice and given all kinds of case laws and everything else, enough that the Levites can make their decisions according to what He has given. Um, it is a simple fact in this that we find that Yahweh considered that taking an innocent life demanded justice. It screamed justice, and He gave them means of figuring things out in order to apply justice. Um, and then he gave warning here of what happens. What will the results be if you ignore justice? We can't ignore justice. Um, but remember, we're not living the Old Testament anymore. That we're in a place of grace, we're in a place of mercy, we're in a place where mercy is greater than judgment. And although we're given the discernment to understand justice, we're given the discernment to understand fairness, the consequences aren't always according to the letter of the law. That forgiveness, um, we can recognize the injustice, and then we're given the ability to administer the Lord's mercy and grace in situations. We have to keep that in mind all the time. Our ministry is not a ministry of justice. It is not a ministry of it is a ministry of reconciliation of all parties, innocent, guilty. It's the ministry of reconciliation. That's what we have to keep in mind. But this really helps us to understand what's going to happen at the end of days, on that day of the judgment. That justice will be real. We have to always keep that in mind. That's the big thing that we should have a takeaway from this. We also see here in verse 9, look, but you must remove innocent bloodshed from your community. I do only what is right in the Lord's eyes. Life matters. Life matters. And when life is taken, then the bloodshed shed must be dealt with. Innocent blood cannot go unanswered. It needs to be taken care of, or the land will be polluted. We have to. That's just, you see how the Lord sees us. Every person is important. Every person has value. Their life matters. Nobody is disposable. In verses 10 to 14, And some of this you may want to pause and just go refresh your memory. I'm not bringing up every verse like I've done in others because there's just too much in these chapters. Um, we see that every matter is being dealt with compassion and fairness. Even in the system of justice, it's dealt with compassion and fairness. Um, then we have this just this establishment right here. It's just established right here about the elders and the eldest sons. And what is the big deal about eldest sons, right? We see here he's bringing in a fairness in dealing with the eldest. Uh, so here it's established that the eldest gets 2/3 of the inheritance. But why? Why? Just because he got the luck of the draw, right? Why? Because he was born before anybody else. Should he receive more? Well, because of the responsibilities he has. Because with the passing of the father, the eldest son takes the responsibility of the whole family. The family now rests on him. This is the way it was set up in the Old Testament. You know, let's just leave it there, okay? So this is the system that is in place. The eldest son is responsible for the family. So if a younger sibling gets in trouble, he has to bail them out. He has to take care of that. So most of the inheritance goes to him because he carries that responsibility of taking care of everybody. That's his. So we see here that it's a responsibility and it's balanced with privilege. If you want to see it privileged, some people would rather have the smaller inheritance and not carry the responsibility. But that's our backwards thinking. Um, if that responsibility is given to you because just because you were born first, then it's considered an honor. It's considered an honor, and nobody got upset at the fact that the eldest received 2/3 because he's also carrying all that responsibility. Then we look at verse 20 here. Um, it says, then they will inform the elders, the city's elders. And this is, what do you do with unruly children? What do you do with children who aren't obeying and causing problems and bringing embarrassment to you, but really are bringing danger to the covenant, really, of Israel, is what we're talking about. Then they will inform the city's elders. This is the parents going to the city's elders saying, this son of ours is consistently stubborn and rebellious, refusing to listen to us. What's more, he's wild and a drunkard. So that the whole drunkard part, that's what clues us into the fact that we're dealing with adult children here. We're not dealing with a 2-year-old who's having a tantrum, or a 6 or 7-year-old who might be causing some problems. We're talking about people who are supposed to be coming into responsibility and have gotten to the point now where they're unteachable, and it's severe. Without a doubt, it's severe. But we have to understand as we read through this, looking at verses 18 to 21, rebellion is a sensitive topic for Yahweh. It senses so much. There's so much pain and suffering now because of rebellion. Eve and Adam rebelled in the garden, and it set up this whole tragedy that we're seeing. Further rebellion happened as we go from generation to generation. There's greater rebellion. He is removing 7 nations because of their behavior towards him, their idolatry and the ugliness of what they do in that idolatry. And it's that rebellion that has taken root. And so that's what we're dealing with here, is that rebellion has to be rooted out because it grows and it causes a lot of problems. Um, so look at verses 22 to 23. Now, if someone is guilty of a capital crime and they are executed, and you then hang them on a tree, you must not leave the body hanging on the tree, but must bury it in it the same day, because God's curse is on those who are hanged. God's curse is on those who are hanged. Furthermore, you must not pollute the ground that the Lord your God is given to you as an inheritance. So this is how Yahweh dealt with the whole cross, that whole thing. Like, how does the Father condemn the Son? How is that possible? Because of the method, because he was hung on a tree, because he was hung on a tree, and because he was hung on a tree, he became cursed of God, and that's the only way that this innocent one was able to take on the sins of the world on that cross. It's just an amazing thing. That's such. It seems like such an innocent, almost insignificant thing in this plethora of of rules and case laws and regulations and everything else. We have this one little thing that is mentioned here, um, and yet it is the great setup. The enemy didn't see it coming. Um, okay, so in chapter 22 here, looking at verses 1 to 4, this all of this has to do with the high morality that Yahweh is putting into place. For our responsibility towards each other. Remember, there was no real code that was in place on how you treated anybody. At least no code that came from Yahweh. There was things where people did what they thought was right. It's how we got Abraham lying about his wife. It's how we got Jacob's father-in-law taking advantage of him. All this kind of behavior that today just would not be accepted, but at that time there were really no rules against it. And so now these case laws and everything that's being brought into place, we have Yahweh establishing a very, very high benchmark of what morality looks like under him. Um, and it was a morality that showed that we were responsible for each other, including responsible for the things that belong to each other. So that if my dog goes wandering and you find my dog, that you would take in my dog, send out notice to say that you found this dog, and then I come looking, and I you can't even charge me for the food or whatever care that you provided. This is the level that we look after each other. We look after each other's property and belongings and so on, and take care of it and not charge each other. This is the kind of the kind of behavior that Yahweh was bringing in, that people would have for each other. And then in verse 5, we have this weird thing. Women must not wear men's clothes, and men must not wear women's clothes. Everyone who does such things is detestable to the Lord. And here again, we have Yahweh establishing that there is a purpose, there's function, and there's design. And everything is to operate in that place of function and design. And we know in a fallen world, we're seeing it today, there is brokenness in these things. There's brokenness in this, but there's healing found in him. And these are things that not necessarily have easy answers, but we have to take it to him. These are things that we need to deal with him. No condemnation, none whatsoever. It's coming to him and finding solutions for these things. But understand that there is function and design in what Yahweh has created, and that's what we're supposed to be operating in. Um, and then, we have this high morality towards each other, but we also have a high morality towards all of creation. And I know there's a lot of Christians that don't want to hear that, because they have this opinion that we get to rape and pillage creation to our own advantage, and we get to do what we want, and that's never been the design. Yahweh said, or the Creator at the time said to Jonah, he gave the same charge that he gave to Adam, only differently. He never told Adam that creation would be afraid of Adam, but he told Noah that creation would be afraid of Noah, his descendants, because of what we would end up doing with creation. And so here we're seeing his heart towards creation. He says, if you come across a bird's nest along your way, whether in a tree or on the ground, with baby birds or eggs, and the mother is sitting on the baby birds or eggs, do not remove the mother from her young. You must let the mother go, though you may take the young for yourself, so that things go well for you, and so you can prolong your life. So things go well. So there is a morality towards nature. It's you have to listen. Yahweh says, don't, when you're laying siege to a city, don't chop down the fruit trees. He says, do not do not boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. There's all these odd kind of things that are inserted, but when we stop and we look at his heart, this is a morality towards creation. And we really need to stop and consider that. We need to take that in consideration. And are we living in a balance? Are we? Are we treating creation as it needs to be created or as it needs to be treated? Just a question I throw out to you. So in verse 8, whenever you build a new house, you must build a railing for the roof so that you don't end up with innocent blood on your hands because someone fell off of it. And this is what Yahweh's morality looks like when we are concerned about other people. When we put in a railing, not because the government tells us to, because it is the right thing to do towards our neighbor. When we put salt down on the sidewalk in front of our house, not because the city is telling us we have to, but because it is the right thing to do for people, for others. It's always it's not, we shouldn't have to consider the law of the land because the morality of Yahweh, of our Father's morality is so much higher than any laws in this land. So if we follow him, we'd never break a law. We wouldn't because we're always concerned about other people. I can't stress that enough coming out of all of these rules and everything that we're looking at. And then we have this weird one. There's a certain community in society that will use this against us to tell us that we're wrong in our thinking, and I can understand that because there has been an imbalance in how we love people, and but they're totally wrong with this because this is talking about balance, okay? And imbalance destroys the value of things. So don't plant your vineyards with two types of seed. Otherwise, the entire crop that you've planted and the produce of the vineyard will be unusable because these seeds they have different needs. These different plants have different needs and they're going to war against each other. They're going to rob from each other. And it's not, you're just going to ruin everything. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey together because they pull differently. They have different strengths. So one is just going to wear out the other, and your field is not going to plow properly. It's just going to be a total fight because there's an imbalance there. Don't wear cloths with mixed wool and linen together because the technology at the time wasn't able to do what we can do with materials now, and the shrinkage would be different. They would tear each other, and the garment would be ruined because they don't have our technology today. Today, that's not so much the case. But what we're supposed to take out of this is the idea that in balance. Don't be unequally yoked is where that comes from. It's an imbalance where certain things just don't work together because they're going to destroy each other, and we need to consider that Yahweh has made and designed things for balance. That's what marriage is all about. There's a balance there. When it's a good match, the two of them aren't alike at all, but each of them has the strengths that the couple needs. One strength will balance against the weakness of another, and so on, when couples have chosen wisely. So this is where you have to come at this from, and need to understand this. Verses 13 to 21. Um, yeah, this may sound archaic because the proof would be obviously even what they did a couple hundred years ago is the proof would be the wedding bed, and the blood that would be produced from having sex for the first time, which would be the proof of the woman's virginity, and this may seem like a very archaic thing, but you've got to understand it from the point that that Yahweh was putting in place justice for women. He was protecting them. He was putting in justice for women, because husbands were not going to be allowed just to turn around and accuse their wife of anything whatsoever. He was putting in place a system of proofs and punishments for false accusations and such. This is the quality of justice that was here. Yahweh is protecting the innocent, and he's punishing the guilty with these things that put in place. Um, because it was important for them to protect the land from the spilling of innocent blood, because Yahweh's already told them innocent blood will pollute the land. There had to be a cost for spilling innocent blood, but the best thing to do is not to spill it in the first place. And he was trying. It was yeah, it was just as important to protect the land for innocent blood as it was from disobedience. So the two really go together there. And so just I know from where we're sitting now, we look at this and we think, yeah, but understand there's limitations in the understanding and the revelation, and they don't have everything. They didn't have everything that we have now. And so Father was putting in place what they could handle. Okay. But the whole idea was to protect the innocent. In verses 22 to 30. Okay. These are, it's a list of unacceptable sexual behavior. Okay. And these case laws, they're really demonstrating, it's a demonstration that reflects on Yahweh's morality and justice. Again, this is just revealing his heart, if you can get there. This is revealing his heart, and for us to understand what he values. And again, everything is coming down to protecting the innocent and punishing the guilty. So let's jump over to chapter 31, and there isn't much here. I've just tried to summarize some things here because it's just too much, guys. We can't touch on all of it. So everything here is interpreted according to assembly of the Lord. That's what's really important to understand, because you read this and you think, well, I thought he was inclusive, but you have to remember that he is perfection. He is perfection. And without the blood of Jesus, he can't have anything to do with imperfection. It's the blood of Jesus that covers the imperfection. It's what we are, where we are living now and what we're dealing with now is so much different than the Old Testament. The Old Testament, it was just raw. It was fallen humanity. There were imperfections. The people were born with imperfections, and you can say, yeah, it wasn't fair. It is true, but it wasn't fair that we rebelled against the Creator either. It wasn't fair that we did this with His creation. That wasn't fair either. And he could not have anything to do with imperfection. He could not have anything to do with imperfection. You need to understand that. It would be destroyed, absolutely destroyed. It's only now in this age where we are covered by the blood of Jesus, that we're in a place where all our imperfections are covered, all of them, whether they're physical imperfections, mental imperfections, heart imperfections, they are all covered, and He works with us. He works with us to bring us into a greater revelation and greater maturity. So the assembly of the Lord, there's all kinds of different things that have been put out, and I research it with with a lot of the Jewish scripture and commentary when it comes to something like this that has to do with their culture and with their understanding. I want to see it through their eyes, and the one that I've landed on, I can't really touch on all of them, but the one that I landed on is this the assembly of the Lord. It really represents men eligible for military service, who made up leadership and the decision making. So those who are involved in leadership, decision making, who were fit enough to be in the military service, this is what is considered the assembly of the Lord, and that's why there are limitations on who can belong to that assembly in this. So I hope that just clears up a couple of things there for you. Um, okay, verses 7 to 14 here. Uh, it's simple. I mean, we can be crass about this if we want. We can talk about the fact that, he didn't want to be walking around and landing in poo. Uh, it's just the Lord, anytime they went to battle, he required purity among the troops. And it's for the very simple reason that he promised to be with them. The short blasts of the trumpet, remember, were to remind them that the the Yahweh was with them. The priests would speak encouragement to them, reminding them that Yahweh was with them. Yahweh spoke to them and said, don't look at the horse, don't look at the numbers. I am with you, and if I'm with you, then nothing can defeat you. So his presence is absolutely vital for them in their warfare, but they had to be clean. They had to be clean, and he gave them a bunch of rules here. You have to be clean. It was so important for them in the warfare. And then the last thing that I want to touch on, verses 15 to 25, and I'm not even going to touch upon it. It's just a whole slew of things here. There are more examples of Yahweh's values and His justice, and we have to get it. It's hard in this age of individualism, especially in Western society, where the individuals lifted up uh, with at a higher value than the community itself. Your rights as an individual are way more important than the community. And I see it in the Christian church. I see that in the church, where the value of the individual is more important than the community. And that's not the way it is. That's not how we have to read all of this from the position of community. We always have to. And we need to understand it's the Lord who decides value, what is valuable and what isn't valuable. It's the Lord who decides what is right and what is wrong. It's the Lord who decides what is holy and what is common. It's He decides those things, not us. He has given us this so we can understand what He says has value, what He says is good. He's given us all this so we can understand this, but He decides, not us. We don't get to rewrite this. We don't get to rethink it. It's either yes or no. Yes, I'm following you and I believe everything you say, or no, I'm going to go and do my own thing, which has its consequences. So we've got to get to that place. Um, and because of this, because he decides this, because this is him as creator who decides this. It's For me, this is why he first the first thing that he revealed to Moses in that moment where he was allowing him to see the back of his glory is his goodness. Is his goodness. That's the first thing we have to be convinced of, that he is good, that he is for us, that he's not against us. He wants to build us up, not tear us down. That even in the discipline, in the moments of discipline, he's disciplining us because he sees us as his sons and daughters. And discipline is to make us better, not vengeance, but discipline to make us better, to bring us to higher places. This is the place where we need to get to, and it is when we can trust that goodness that we can also trust when He says He will have compassion on whom He has compassion and mercy on whom He has mercy, and that broadness. We don't have to be afraid of that broadness. We don't have to be afraid of that power. We don't have to be afraid of Him at all, because He's good. Because He's good, we can trust what He says. Okay, sorry guys, that's a lot, but it's Deuteronomy, and love you all. Thank you very much for sticking with this and being patient with me as we go through this. Thank you for staying on this journey with me. I think we've lost a few along the way, um, but it may not be the season for everybody right now, so that's okay. Yeah, just thank you so much for plugging through this. Some of you might be taking this one every 2 days or one every 3 days, because a lot of stuff to process. I appreciate that. I can understand that. But you have any questions, just shoot me a line. No problem. Give me a call if you have my telephone number. Look me up on Facebook. Send me a message on Messenger. Leave a note here on this platform. Whatever you want, I'm available to you. You guys be blessed, be encouraged. Love you all.